I told my little brother, like, who's 2 years younger than me, I was like, yo, would you be down to hit up some walls and, like, vandalize pretty much?
All right, welcome to a brand new episode of the Amner Martinez podcast. Different day.
Totally different day.
Totally different day.
We're just wearing the same
We're just wearing the same clothes. I just really like this sweater.
Yeah, we're just very.
By the
very
way,
dirty
this sweater's
people.
dope. People can get it at go to the Human Podcast on Instagram. Julian is the host. Or you can go to amplifieddsm.com, look for the Human Podcast, click on that, find him on the social media, and you can order this merch. We're going to put a link on it. I love it. It's cool. He's got cool shit.
Nice.
And his podcast is dope. So, but our next guest, see, everybody that I talk to, that I like, we invite, it's really exciting. But I was really excited to talk to Zet Gold, this artist that's flown around the world, but she somehow landed here. We'll talk about it. And Mainframe Studios was kind enough to let us borrow their space. Mainframe Studios is a houses artist at a very affordable prices. It's a non-profit organization. I think it's like over 100. There's how many? I don't know.
There's a lot. It's like it's almost like a hotel.
Yes, but
It's
like
a
super
hotel
fancy.
for like artists.
Yeah, super nice, super clean, remodeled. Like it's they're doing it like the real way. So everybody go check out Mainframe Studios for letting us borrow their space on to interview Zet Gold. But it kind of was
and
fitting.
also like check out their First Friday.
Yes.
First Friday.
Yeah, they do.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Sometimes I DJ there.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. It is.
Before the pandemic, it was like blowing up.
Yeah.
And then.
And I did one right when they reopened everything.
Okay.
That was
Yeah.
weird.
Slowly. Why?
Yeah,
Oh, 'cause
it
of
was
that,
just, it was like one of the first gigs
Mm-hmm.
after the shutdown, and so doing things with a mask, and I don't know.
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
weird,
yeah.
Real weird, a little bit.
But once this whole pandemic thing is past, that's a place to go to for any artist or anybody that likes, the arts. There's all kinds of stuff in there. So
Yeah, shout out to Shaban.
yeah, super.
cool.
Yeah, everybody's super nice to us. That's good, right?
Yeah, they need to be. For you.
Why?
It's, I don't know, I want to bully you every time I see you. Look, I see your back and I just want to push it.
Fuck you. All right, let's get back on track. So Zet Gold, amazing artist. Check her out.
Yeah, she's got a really cool style.
Yes.
Very, very. I don't know. It's unique. I think that I would notice that if I saw something that was made by her.
Yeah.
I would probably recognize it.
Yes. It's when you run into some art and you're like, okay, I can relate that to another artist, right? Like you can kind of put them together, like, oh, this is a very pop, blah blah blah. But hers, like she's kind of carving a little style of her own,
Right,
isn't
right,
it? Yeah.
yeah.
So that's what I was very interested in, and go check out her work. Obviously, she's an amazing artist, great person. What else?
Nothing. Let's go.
That's it. Nothing. Let's go. Well, thank you for making time for us. Okay, so this is I was asking my wife, I'm like, so Zet Gold, is that your artist name or your like?
That's my artist
That's
name.
your artist
People always
name.
get thrown off by that.
Okay, because
My real name's Elizabeth.
Okay.
Maxino.
Because she's like, I think that's her name. And I'm like, if that's her name, that is the coolest name I've ever
That's
heard.
the thing.
That is-
Everyone always gets excited like when they hear that, and then when they hear it's not, they're like, oh,
This-
I'm so disappointed. And it's just like I just feel so bad.
Why is Zet Gold?
Well, Lizette was the nickname that I grew up with.
Okay, okay.
And during college, it got cut even shorter to Zet. I don't know if people were just getting lazy, but it was like, okay, Zet. And then Gold was kind of like the pen name that I would sign off in my journals.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so we were talking about where we live and where we come from. So from Vegas, you moved to Iowa, but your heritage, what's your
Ethnic background.
Yeah.
So actually, I was born in Saudi Arabia in the Middle East.
Okay.
And my parents are Filipino, so they moved from the Philippines to Saudi Arabia. I was born there, lived there for about 8 years, and then moved to San Diego with the rest of my dad's family. And we lived there for about 3 years, and then we transitioned into Vegas because they were building new houses. And so we were like, why not? And so we moved to Vegas.
So and the reason why I ask is, you know, I'm a big fan of your art.
Thank you.
So, does your background, does that play a role in your art?
Kind of. I mean, like, I would say it does because it's not a common career choice, I guess you could say. Like, if I were to ask, you know, like a bunch of Filipinos, like, you know, like how many Filipino artists do you know? They'd probably be like, not that many. I mean, I would say most people would pick like nursing or something a little bit more secure. So growing up, I didn't even think that I would be an artist. It was not really a choice that I had for myself. It was kind of like, yeah, I might get into nursing. I might do medicine or something a little bit more secure. And then going into college, I thought I was going to do music. Didn't end up doing that. And then I chose graphic design because it was like, okay, it's safe, but I am still somewhat doing something creative. But yeah, I definitely felt that at times where I was like, man, I'm like the one Filipina person in my group of friends that's doing art, which is, it's rare. I mean, it's becoming more common now, but during the time it was like, it's super rare.
So, when did you decide, okay, art is, like, I'm an artist, I because you do installations too, right?
Yeah, I do a mix of everything.
Right.
For me, it was, it's gonna sound pretty recent, but like even doing graphic design, like I wasn't really painting or anything. And so during college, I kind of just tried out graphic design because again, like what I was saying, I was like, well, it's kind of secure, kind of creative. And then, this is gonna sound so crazy, so during that time, I had one of my cousins who kind of introduced me into street art.
Okay.
And then, so I started doing some research on that, and I don't know if I was just like at a phase of my life, but I got into doing street art for a little bit. There had been a point where I told my little brother, like, who's 2 years younger than me, I was like, yo, would you be down to hit up some walls and like vandalize pretty much? And so we started doing that, and we started going to trains and doing like wheat paste and tagging and things like that. Again, art was still not something that I took really serious. It was kind of just for fun, and eventually, like doing the tag ups and the wheat paste carried on to campus, and I started doing it around the art department, which I knew was, you know, like it's like technically you're not supposed to be doing that, but I started doing that just to, I don't know, at times just to kill time, and at times to like, I don't know, get a conversation going. And then one of my professors, you know, they see my work all the time in my sketchbooks, and he was like, hey, are you the one doing all this stuff on the walls? And I thought I was getting in trouble. I was like, oh snap. And then he encouraged me to do the BFA program, and I think that was kind
You
of
incriminated yourself by doing the same style of.
Yeah, I mean, I was also pretty like, well, they're gonna eventually figure out, but it was kind of like I wasn't trying to upset anybody. I think I really did want to create that conversation. And eventually, yeah, I was encouraged to do the BFA program, and it's a 1-year program where you're pretty much exploring like what do you want to do in art. And that was when I realized, like, you know what, I guess I'm okay at this. Like, why don't we, why don't we try it out? And so since then, that's kind of been when I've been doing art.
So, your style, like, so, because you have a style, how would you describe it?
I don't know. My style, it's weird because some people do point that out where it's like, man, it's so distinct. And I can look at my stuff where it's like, man, I feel like it's kind of all over the place. A lot of the influences I would say is like, yes, street art. A lot of the influences also come from like skateboarding culture, where it's like you see these graphics on the boards and on clothes. And I would best describe my style as like maybe whimsical, but even then, it's not entirely that. I would say it's just like all over the place.
Is there? So did it evolve into where it is now? It's because it looks like you've kind of honed it in, right?
Yes, I mean there's it's weird because like, you know, people do say like, yeah, you have a style, but for me, I feel like I'm still working at it. You know, it takes a lot. It took me a lot of time to get to where I'm at right now, and it's like, you know, doing research and just like seeing what I enjoy, like seeing what works with like, I don't know, even the way that my hand just hits the paper. It's yeah.
What is your process? Do you sketch a lot, or you just go into the canvas?
It depends. A lot of my process, man, if people would see it, they'd be like, man, you spend a lot of time just thinking. And usually it starts with like journal entries, which is like what I call bird watching, which is, it's this idea of standing background and making observations. And so usually it starts off with like making observations and then like just thinking about my ideas. And sometimes that can take up to a couple days before I even can start drafting out something. And then it also depends on the project. Like if I'm working for clients, it's like a step-by-step process. For my own personal work, usually I have to get to a point where like something does trigger me to just go at it pretty much. And so usually it'll be like a sketch, and with painting it'll kind of be like just start working with the material and then just almost like get to this point where you like black out and just like start adding all sorts of details on whatever, you know, surface I'm working on. So
is it saying something? Is it because, and this is honest, so I'm looking at it and it I mean it looks like if you take a good hit of acid or you use mushrooms, then you're like, it's a great piece to look at.
Yeah.
But it also can be like children's, like,
yeah.
Is it saying something? Like,
it is saying, I mean, there's some pieces where it is saying something, and there's some pieces where it's literally just for enjoyment. I mean, there's some pieces where, you know, I'm trying to maybe crack a joke at something.
Okay.
But I feel like that too. Like, I like that my work can be enjoyed by children, but also adults.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's what I enjoy most, is that, you know, kids can be like, oh, that's so fun, but an adult can look at that same painting and go, I totally can relate to that.
Okay.
You know?
What is the feedback that's stuck with you from people that appreciate your art?
I think the feedback that has stuck to me is, you know, like things like, simple things like, oh, you inspire me, or like things like, I totally get it, or man, I can relate to that. Because that, man, like, you know how they say like a painting says 1,000 words, like that's literally it. And things like that keep me going.
Yeah. So you use a lot of color too.
I do.
So is that, do you pick the color before you start?
It depends. If I'm low on material, then we're going with what we have.
Okay.
But I think right now, actually, I'm trying to be more precise about my color palettes. But for the most part, I try to stick to a primary color palette, because that's, you know, the basic. But yeah, I try not to limit myself too. But
has anybody told you that your stuff is like political, or or has anybody told you that it's dark?
yes, I mean, there was, if you see my older works, again, they're mostly archived, but if you see like my college phase, you would just say, man, Zet was going through a tough time. Everything was so dark. And I think there was, again, that was a phase of my life where I was just like, man, I just need to say something. Like I had to say something about this. And, you know, I was trying to say it with my work, so it was really loud, I would say. It's funny too, because my mom, she has seen my work, and so has my dad. But they both have said, looking at my older works and then comparing it to now, they'll be like, you're so much happier, I could just tell.
Okay.
Like your colors are more happier.
Yeah,
but
okay.
before it was like black everything. Like it was just like the, I don't know, like goth phase of my life. Everything was just so dark. Everything.
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty scary.
So it has evolved into this like really colorful, because you like use pastels. And
Yeah, I use a bunch of different colors, but I think it's also a reflection of like how, you know, how I've grown as a person and how like now the way I choose to perceive things, you know. You know, when you're young, you're just like, man, everything's against me. There's nothing I can do. And then now you're just like, you know what, like maybe it's not that big of a deal, or maybe I don't have to be mad about it, or you know what I mean. And so yeah, the colors have evolved.
Yes, they're like, they make you happy when you're looking at your paintings. There's like a happy feeling
so.
that comes with it. But then also, if you look at them closer, you're like, whoa,
It's
there's
intense.
a little wickedness in there.
There is a little bit of it.
Yeah.
And I think,
why is that? Where does that come from?
I think, well, that too, like when I'm creating a story, there's so many stories within a story. Like, you know what I mean? Like even when I'm creating more than one character in a story, it's like I'm constantly thinking about like, what is this person going through? Or sometimes like the different characters are kind of like where my different emotions are split off, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Different parts would be like, man, I'm kind of angry about this, or you know, there's
So obviously there's self-expression.
Yes.
There's a lot of you in there.
there is. Now I sound like I have like schizophrenia. Like just like put all these characters with all these, yeah.
I mean, it's really cool. I mean,
Yeah.
the stuff is very original, and
Thank you.
but you've also gotten into like murals, right?
Yes.
And there's one on 6th Avenue, which is lucky for us. Like I drive through that street literally 5 times a day.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I get to see it all the time. So I know the person that you worked with to help put that together, which is Brian Bonanno and Third Space. But and I heard a little bit there's a little bit of controversy that happened during that.
Yes.
If you don't mind, like if there's, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about it. So that was really interesting. It was a little bit heartbreaking, just because like, I mean, I wasn't trying to make like a political statement with it, and there had been a comment that it was like somebody was offended because it's this like, again, I wasn't finished, so they just see this giant watermelon
yeah.
with the chains on it, and you know, there's, you know, people have so many ideas of that, and I totally understand that. I did not want to disregard that, and I was just taken back by it because it was like, you know, I didn't have the intention of trying to offend anyone. For me, it was kind of like, I'm excited to be able to share this with that community.
Right,
like, you know,
right.
like that's exciting to be able to do that. And so I remember Brian Bonanno coming up to me and being like, I don't want to tell you. And I was like, no, just tell me.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you need to tell me.
Now you gotta tell me.
You know, you have to tell me. Like, you already started.
Yeah.
And so he told me, he's like, well, somebody was offended that it was a watermelon dragon is what they called it, I guess, in handcuffs. And I was like, no, that wasn't it. Like, that totally wasn't it. And I had to take a pause because I was like, well, you know, that wasn't the message, like, but maybe I should redo everything and just so that nobody does get offended. But then I was talking to a few more people, and they're like, no, like, if you change it, then that's totally what you were trying to say.
Right,
like,
right.
And I was just like really confused by it, a little bit hurt, because it was like, man, like, I wish they would have just talked to me as a person, because if you meet me as a person, you wouldn't be like, man, Zet's so mean. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so then I had, you know, Brian was like, just finish, you just keep going at it. And then, you know, there's this African American man who came up to me, and he was like, this is cool. Well, and he was snapping photos, and I got a little bit nervous because then he goes, well, what does this mean? And I was like, oh, snap, maybe this is the guy.
Okay.
And I was like, well, I was just trying to create a story. And I was like, can I ask you a question? I personally want to ask you, are you offended by this? And he was like, what? What do you mean? And he was like, so I told him a little bit about what happened. And I was like, well, somebody was just like, well, it's a watermelon. And I guess somebody said it was a watermelon in handcuffs. He was like, no, I didn't even see it as that. And that's the thing with art. Like, you're always going to be wrong in somebody else's eyes.
Yeah.
Like, someone's always going to want to be offended. And I guess you got to just, make that decision for yourself. And so for me, it was just like, well, I'm going to finish it. It's going to be great. And you know what? Like, if they want to have that conversation, they can have that conversation.
Yeah.
'Cause I think
and in a way, that's kind of what art is, right? Like, it's supposed to
someone's always going to get mad.
spark some kind of thought.
Yeah, like I've definitely had comments on my stuff before where it was like, Zet, that looks like something else. And it was like, well, that says a lot about you. You know what I mean? Or like, I don't know, like sometimes you just have to talk it out and,
If you would have changed it, do you think you would have like abandoned your work in a way, or like let your work down a little bit? Gave in to the pressure?
Because I can always adjust. But I think for me, I was more so feeling a little bit discouraged. Like, man, like now I just feel unwelcome.
Because it was your
like,
first. It was your first mural, or have you done a mural before?
No, I did one mural prior.
Okay.
But that comment was just like, man, like what now? Like if I put like what other fruit is offensive, And I mean, like I just didn't know, because now I was just like over, for a couple days I was like overthinking it of like, okay, like how do I make these features on the character? Like now do I have to be careful with that? And I know you do. There's a certain point where you do kind of have to be careful and make sure you do your research.
Right.
But that totally wasn't the point. I mean, the original sketch too, if we can go back a little bit, is so the original sketch that I had originally planned for that wall was going to be like this watermelon crocodile and in chains, and then it was going to be a person on the back who was pretty much like slaying the crocodile, and it was going to say hometown hero. And the idea behind it was going to be like, it's okay to just be a hometown hero. Like that's more than enough. But then going into space, it was like, okay, we're going to have to adjust and like remove some details. And so that aspect of it was completely removed.
Oh, okay.
So now you just got like a crocodile boat of fruits.
Right.
Yeah, and like different characters. But
what did you learn from that experience?
I've learned that it's important to have conversations, like, and not to be scared to say, like, because I remember saying to Brian, well, let her know, like, if she wants to talk, like, I'm totally more than happy, because I think sometimes you just need to get to know somebody before you assume anything. And that too, I like, one thing I learned about that is like, stand behind your work, like, trust your gut. Like, if you know, like, in your heart and soul, like, that was not your intention, like, don't be scared, like, because that's the thing, someone's always going to say something. Someone's always going to get offended. Someone's always going to say, like, hey, that looks a little funny, but you just got to do it.
Yeah. So the art scene in Des Moines, it's been underground for years. Maybe 10 years ago 15 years ago was completely underground, very rare. And there's a little bit of evolution, and Mainframe Studios is one of those places that's kind of helping, artists. But the reason why I'm saying that, being a working artist is not the easiest thing.
It's not.
To
it's
get
a sacrifice.
to. Right.
It's a sacrifice.
Can you speak on that a little bit? Like, what is the struggles of an artist to eventually make a living out of it?
That's the thing. Like, I would say, people always say, like, that's so cool that you're doing art and trying to hustle pretty much. And it's, for me, the one thing that, like, made me choose this career choice is, like, man, like, this is something I'm really good at. And this is something that I know I can keep growing in and keep challenging myself in. And it's hard because, sometimes, like, you've got people who are not willing to pay as much as they should. But then for me, it's like sometimes it's like, dang, I just want to help. And I don't like, sometimes that's my downfall, is that I just like want to help. And it's tough. It's tough. But for me, like, my goal as an artist, here's the thing, like, I always see art as a tool versus like being an artist is my identity, if that makes sense.
So it's the reason why I was getting to this is because so you come from Vegas, right? So like the Vegas art scene compared to the Des Moines art scene, compared to the like LA scene. So that's like in Des Moines, you know, that's the legit struggle of an artist. Like a lot of people are just doing things voluntary, and people, the culture is almost like, let's collaborate for free. So there's never like an economy be built around it, because people are just wanting to build their portfolio and do this for free because it'll help you. And then it's just, there's never like a,
it's
like
unfortunate because that does happen, and you kind of have to draw the line at certain points. Like, you know, there are some collaborations where it's like, I understand your position, like we're good friends, and like I clearly understand where you're coming from, but you also have to have a meeting point where it feels fair. The difference with Vegas is it is a little bit more corporate in a way, like where I don't really, well, now looking back at it, it's like during the time that I was there, it was like, I don't really see my stuff fitting into that environment. And but here in Des Moines, in comparison, I would say Des Moines is extremely supportive as far as, at least from my experience. I know I've heard different stories, but it is tough for artists because, you know, there's people who just assume that it is an easy job. But I think if somebody were to go into my space and watch me, like, do my work, they'd be like, oh my gosh, like, you don't get sleep, or like, did you even get up to eat or something? You know what I mean? And again, it is a sacrifice. It really is a sacrifice.
The artists that I've met, they a problem that I see with artists is that they're so passionate about their art, and there's so much love, and they don't want to dirty it with like money. So they don't care if they work for free, because their enrichment is by doing the work and creating something beautiful, right? So how are you able to manage that, where it's like you're still like being fully artistic and creative and expressive, but also having that business sense where it's like, I gotta make a living, I gotta pay my bills.
I mean, I think it has to come down to that, where it's like, okay, I kind of have to swallow my pride a little bit and say that, like, like I do have to work with certain groups of people. My work is a little bit more split off in a sense of, like, I do have my personal work, which is more so, you know, like my decisions and like what I want to do, but then I do actually like editorial work for other people, or just like commission projects, which I think it's nice to have that division of like, okay, this is client work, and I've kind of trained my brain to see that, like, okay, this is your stuff, but like this is like work, and then there's my stuff, which is like, okay, like I enjoy doing this for me, and if I make income from that, well, that's nice too. But like I think I've learned to just kind of split it
It's a tough
off.
line, right?
It is, because there's some projects too where you're like, man, I don't want to draw the face the way that you told me to draw the face, but you know, and you kind of had to, again, going back to like having that conversation and explaining why. But sometimes just talking to your client and being like,
have you turned down some work that you're like, I'm not with that?
There's some works that I've done where it was like, sometimes due to time constraints, and I'm just like, man, I kind of have too many projects on hand. But there have been some where it was like, that I'm not really doing that right now. I mean, I'm flattered that you can see my work fitting for your idea, but it, like, I don't know. I think there was one client that said, hey, because I had been doing some cover art for some musicians, and it was somebody who was releasing, not to call anyone out either, but it was somebody who was releasing, I think, an album or an EP, and he was like, can you just make like this split off where it was like a dark side and then like a street where there's like tagging on it, and then like angel wings, and I was just like, I don't think I would, because if you know that you're not the fit, like,
Yeah.
don't like just take the job because you wanted to get money hungry real quick. So I had to just be like, hey, I just don't think I'm a perfect fit for this, or I'm not the right fit at least.
Yeah. So do you said you have some work that you're kind of working on? Do you have murals that you're working on, or what?
I have a mural coming up in April, and that one's going to be in Creston again.
Okay.
I can't spill too many details yet because I'm still kind of waiting to hear from that. And then there was another mural that I was waiting on to see if I had even gotten the gig.
Okay.
And so I didn't get that specific one, but they had offered a new one for, it's going to sound like a long time, but it's not till next summer because of the fact that it's the space is still under construction.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, there's that, and then there's like the client work that I'm currently working on, as well as like my personal work.
What do you want people, like, what do you want people to take away from your work when they see it? Is there something that you like?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. I mean, there's definitely a lot of things. I think one thing I really want to be able to do with my work is to be able to challenge people to, I don't know, like look at things from a different perspective, or even like, I always say this to people, like your brain gets trained to see the world one way, but sometimes you have to learn how to see it a different way. And I hope that I can do that with my work when somebody looks at, for example, I guess for an example, so I'm already currently working on like this little sketch of a mouse, and it was inspired because I was in the garage the other day, and I had seen a mouse like run through the garage, and so you kind of think, oh yeah, just a random mouse. And so I started thinking up a story of like, well, what is the mouse going through, or like what is he thinking, and things like that. Like I want to challenge people to wonder, like, I think sometimes also as an adult you forget to do that, or you forget to have fun with those little things. And with my work, it always makes me happy when somebody looks at it like, oh, that's so funny, like I didn't think about that, or like just things like that. Like that's really what I ultimately want people to take away from my work, is just like, yeah, I didn't think of looking at that situation in that light.
Yeah.
So,
I can tell you that it does that because there's one that like it looks like some aliens are on a bus, like it looks like a bus ride.
Oh, okay. So that one.
I really
Okay,
like
so
that
that one was my husband and I were just recently talking about that one. That one was actually a gift for my brother and his girlfriend, and they just had gotten a dog. And they're these super cool people out in New York right now, and I was just like, what is the perfect narrative for them, or like what is fitting? And so in my mind, I just created this story and like gave them these cool like space outfits, because they just give me that vibe, like they're just so cool.
Okay.
And so yeah, like even that, where like just creating stories from people I know. And so
How long does it take you to make one of those?
oh, it depends. It totally depends. That one's digital illustration, so it's just so much more forgiving. Like you can press undo and redo things a million times. And so those ones actually take way longer, just because you can edit and keep working at it for like however long you want.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's a longer, for me at least. Some people say, oh, it's easier, it's quicker, and it is, but I guess it depends on how precise you're trying to get.
Because if you can get over obsessive about it.
That's
and just
literally what happens.
Okay.
I mean, you see it. It's
Yeah.
I was getting pretty obsessive with it for a little bit, versus like, paintings, like actual paintings, once the paint is down and it's dry, like it's not as forgiving.
So you said it's digital. So and I was gonna ask you about your colors, because they're pretty. You don't see them all the time, I guess. So where do you prefer? Like
I like
the
both.
digital world, or like the real paint?
I enjoy
world?
both, and it depends again on the project that I'm working on. I enjoy like traditional, because like the textures are different. Like I know that there's a lot of new programs coming out where they have all these different brushes, and kind of like the actual, but it's never going to be quite the same. And so I do enjoy both. I know for a little bit I was like, man, I hate digital. Like they're trying to take over. Like that's not real art. And then getting more into illustration, it was like, well, you can use it to your liking. Like, you know, you can make it work with your style. And that took me a while to get used to. But I enjoy both because I feel like there's ways to incorporate both in certain projects. So it's hard for me to pick like which one's my favorite because both, it just depends on like what you're using it for.
Right. How does an artist, well, right now with the pandemic, usually it would be an art gallery, right?
Yeah.
To showcase one's work. How are artists navigating now with
Internet,
just
like social media, like
media?
just, I mean, you see social media right now is like flooding with everything. And so I think that's, I mean, the internet is great for that where, you know, people are sharing like constantly from all over the place. But I think that's kind of the main way that people have been sharing is just like via internet. And so.
So are you in, so you've been all over the place, but Vegas was the last place that you were at.
Yeah.
You've been in Iowa for 3 years. Is this like a permanent move? Like, are you calling it a home? Or?
I think so. I mean, my husband and I have talked about like, yeah, maybe we might want to check out another place for a little bit, but I think we would come back to Iowa. Like Iowa is so different, like in the sense of that, you know, I'm coming from like a big city and then coming here where it's really quiet. I actually enjoy that a lot, which is weird because for me, it was just like, I didn't realize how much I am such a homebody, where it's like, yeah, I do enjoy being outside the house. Like, as much as, you know, when I was younger, I thought like, oh yeah, I want to go where there's a lot of coffee shops and a lot of places to go to. And fast forward to now, I'm like, kind of makes me anxious to sit in a coffee shop. I can't even really work because I'm just like observing everybody and watching everybody. So I think for now, yeah, my answer would be that like we probably are going to stay in Iowa.
For a little bit.
For a little bit. Unless something crazy comes up where it's just like, yeah, like why not try something out? But I think we would still come back to Iowa.
Yeah, yeah. Is there moments where you find more inspiration in?
Yeah. It's crazy for me because I would say the moments that I'm extremely inspired are when it's the toughest times for me. Like, well, yeah, because then, you know, like, again, I'm trying to write these stories from different perspectives. And, you know, going through tough times, like, you know, sometimes it motivates me to work harder. Or, you know, how can I, again, look at this from a different perspective? And how can I cope with a situation? So for me, sometimes it's like, man, this month is tough. Like, I'm inspired. Or, like, it's
so when
weird.
when you have the blues, when you're hurt emotionally, is that when
you
you
make
find?
the best work. Like, you do, because it just, like, it helps you. It's also, like, this process of problem solving almost during that process of creating work. Like, you know, you've thought about it so much that you're kind of over it at a sense, at a certain point where it's like, yeah, I've thought about this, I've made work about it, I'm over it, you know? Like, I mean, you think about people writing music. People write the best music after heartbreak.
Yeah,
so,
that's what I was going to say. The best music has been, you know, where the greatest songs come from, like, the most darkest places from people.
Yeah.
So, well, I want to thank you for making time. I know we've never met before, but I've been a fan of yours for at least since you started that mural, which was maybe a couple years ago, right?
It's crazy to think that it's already been a couple years.
Right. So I look forward to, you know, seeing your new work. And anybody that wants to contact you for work, what is the best way to?
Just on Instagram or on my website, which is on my Instagram. But you can contact me through there.
The Zet Gold,
Zet Gold,
Z-E-T.
Just Zet Gold, just ZTGOLD. I know there's like a radio station, I think, that's under that same name, but Zet Gold I should be the first one that pops up.
You should be the one that pops up.
I would hope so.
Okay, all right. And you're for hire.
Yes, I am for hire.
All right, well, thank you again, and hope we talk again soon.
Thank you for having me.
All right, there you have it. Zet Gold, amazing artist. And people shouldn't take for granted, like, that we have local talent like that here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
A lot.
And that's one of the things that Mainframe helps I think Mainframe is going to be a pivotal point for the art scene here in Des Moines, and I don't think it. I mean, it is being big change.
Time. I think Des Moines is pretty big on art. Like,
yeah, it punches over its weight. I heard somebody say that. It punches over its weight.
And
I mean, the Papa John's planet, the
yeah.
Papa John's sculpture park. That's pretty.
Yeah, it's a lot. Like, I mean, the art festival here in town is huge.
Mm-hmm. It's one of the biggest in the nation.
You would never expect it.
Yeah.
And it's pretty big.
But the local scene, though, the local art scene needs to be like more robust, I think. So I want to thank everybody for anybody that works on this, that makes it happen, that lets us borrow those places, and people, the guests that come. Thank you for putting all the work, and the twins that are helping us.
Twins that get to listen to this.
Yeah,
garbage.
Get to listen. No, not garbage. We're garbage.
Yeah, we're
We're
garbage.
That's low.
That's very low.
Yeah. All right. So thank you everybody for listening to this episode. Thank you to Zet Gold. Thank you to Good Vibes. Thank you to Mainframe Studios. We'll see you guys soon.